Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a recommendation video which I haven't done for a really long time. I don't do many recommendation videos, but this one grew out of a book that I've loved that I wanted to recommend, and I might have built a whole video around it. But hey, this is my channel, I can do what I like. So I'm recommending short reads to you today, and I thought it might be helpful because we're getting towards the end of the year. Some people are getting worried about their GoodReads goal or not. Personally, I'm not really that fussed about mine, but I know there are some people that really want to get to a certain number of reads by the end of the year. These are short books, so they're less than 250 pages. And the ones that I've read this year, and they're also ones I've given 4 or 5 stars, so I've really enjoyed them. So I thought it'd be useful to round them all up and recommend them to you. So I've got 10 reads to recommend to you. So we've got 2 plays, 3 non-fiction, 1 YA, and then 4 that I've just put in the category of weird because I didn't really know where else to put them. So we're going to start with the plays. So I've got 2 plays to recommend you, like I said. Now I've read quite a lot of plays this year in preparation for my PGCE, and if you see my June, July and August wrap-ups, you've seen all of the plays that I've had to read. I, as I've said before, very firmly believe that plays were written to be watched rather than read, but there were 2 that I read that really stood out and I had really good reading experiences, so I wanted to recommend them. The first of those is The Curious Instant of the Dog in the Nighttime. Now the original novel is by Mark Haddon, and then it was adapted by Simon Stevens for the stage. This is about a boy who discovers a dead dog in his garden, and he sets out to try and work out what happened, and that is the basic plot of the play, and also obviously of the novel. There has been a lot of discussion around whether or not the main character in this book is autistic, but that is never expressly stated, and the author has also said that he wasn't deliberately writing autistic rep, so just be aware of that. I really thoroughly enjoyed this play. It's set out with lots of kind of stage direction and information on the visual. There's a particular bit at the end, which obviously I won't get into because of spoilers, that I could really visualise, and it's a play that I'm likely to teach, and so therefore hopefully likely to watch at some point. I'm really excited to see this live on stage, and I had a really enjoyable reading experience. The other play that I'm going to recommend you is very different, and that is The Lamplighter by Jackie Kay. This copy was very kindly gifted to me by Book Break. This is about slavery, British slavery. It was originally a radio play, and then this is I think it was adapted for the stage, and it's very powerful. We've got, I think, 4 separate voices that kind of weave all the way through, and it's almost like it's very choral, so all of the voices intersect each other. We don't just have like one character story and then on to the next scene. It's all weaves together really beautifully. It's obviously very brutal in places given the subject matter, but I feel like it really brings it to life, and it's definitely one of those things. Unfortunately at the moment it's not on the curriculum, but I definitely feel like it's one that I'll be bringing into the classroom because it's a very accessible way to think about, and more importantly talk about, slavery and racism. And yeah, very much like The Curious Instant of the Dog in the Nighttime, I had a really powerful reading experience with this one, but obviously for very different reasons. The first of the non-fictions that I've got to talk to you about is White Rage by Carol Anderson. Now I realise this looks a lot bigger than 250 pages, but actually all of this is references. So it's actually, I think it's 178 pages, so it's nowhere near as long as it looks, because that's where like the acknowledgements and then all of the notes start. So this is about racism. It's the history of racism in America, and it's incredibly powerful. As you can see, I tabbed basically every page. It's very accessible. I've read quite a few anti-racist books this year. Some of them have been a little bit more academic. This is very accessible and easy to read, so please don't be intimidated by it. If you are interested in becoming more anti-racist and finding out more about racism, the roots of it, how it affects everything today, then I would highly recommend this one. And then also on the theme of racism, but from a very different angle, is Don't Touch My Hair by Emma Dabiri, which Eva from Words of Clover very kindly gifted me for my birthday. This looks at British racism, and more specifically Irish racism, because Emma is an Irish woman, through the lens of hair. And she goes into the kind of biological differences between black hair and European hair, and talks about all the cultural reasons why the way that they style their hair, and like all the history and the background to it. I found it really, really fascinating. Again, it's really accessible. This is also kind of part autobiography because we get bits of Emma's own story and her own life, and it's also got this wonderful thread of like sarcastic humour that runs through it, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it, found it really impactful, and I would definitely recommend it. And then on a very different topic is a book I'm going to recommend, and it's 'Twas a Night Shift Before Christmas by Adam Kay. This is the follow-up to This Is Going to Hurt, which has been absolutely everywhere, so I'm definitely not the first person to recommend this, but this is the short kind of Christmas edition, and it's just so much fun. This is 142 pages, so it's a really short little book. This one's got sprayed edges, it's so pretty. And much like This Is Going to Hurt, this is just stories that Adam Kay gathered whilst he was working as a junior doctor within the NHS. Some of them are heartbreaking, a lot of them are hilarious, and as always it's got his kind of signature wit running all the way through. Okay, so I've now got 2 books to recommend you that I don't physically have. So the first is the YA series that I mentioned, which is the Wayward Children series by Shauna Maguire. I don't physically own these books because they are super expensive. I've read them all via audiobook, but they are YA fantasy sci-fi, I guess. It's basically set at the home for wayward children, which take in children who have accidentally or deliberately walked through doors and portals into other worlds, have then been expelled from those worlds and are trying to get used to living back in our world. So for example, Alice in Wonderland falling down the rabbit hole, when she got back she could have gone to the home for wayward children. I absolutely adore this whole series. I think my favourite is Beneath the Sugar Sky, which I can't remember if it's book 2 or 3, because aside from the first one, it doesn't matter how you read, which order you read the rest of them in. They are fantastically creative. They are also great with representation. You've got all kinds of rep. You've got mental health rep, we've got different bodies rep, we've got various different skin colours and sexualities and sexual identities and all sorts of things going on. We've got non-binary characters, we've got trans characters. There's a whole load of really fantastic rep going on, plus you've got this fantastically creative world, or worlds, multiple worlds that have been built up. So I would definitely recommend that series. The only book I have by Shauna Maguire physically is Middle Game, which I read earlier this year and absolutely loved, but that's a really long, like full-length novel, so it wouldn't fit into this. But yes, definitely highly recommend the Wayward Children series. We're now onto the kind of weird section. The first book that I'm going to recommend in that I also don't have with me because it's currently with my mother-in-law, and that is The Test by Sylvain Neuvel. And I read this last month. It's really short. I think it's less than 100 pages long. And the only thing I can tell you about it is it's about a man taking a British citizenship test, and that is all I can say. It was written by one of the writers for Black Mirror, and it's weird. It definitely fits into my it's weird category, but it definitely also throws up some really interesting questions. And one of the things I love in books is when it's the question of what would you do, and that definitely comes up in this book, and that is all I'm going to say. Highly recommend it. It's very weird. Okay, so my other books that I categorised as weird. This next one isn't weird like the others are, but I wasn't quite sure where to put it in a category. But it is The Deep by Rivers Solomon, which I read I think in May or June earlier this year. So this is, I'm even not sure how to categorise this at all, fantasy. It's basically set around the idea that when pregnant slaves were thrown overboard, their babies were born, and they were born able to breathe underwater, and it's created this race of people who live like down in the deep, and they don't all carry the memories of their ancestors, but one member of their community carries all of the memories for everybody. And it's about what happens when that, I think it's called The Librarian. This was a little while ago that I read this. The Historian, sorry. it's about what happens when the historian starts to crack under the pressure of holding in all those traumatic memories, and it's about them basically setting out to try and break free and get away from everything they can remember. It's absolutely beautifully written. I still need to pick up more by River Solomon, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and it's also very, very short, 165 pages, but it's definitely one of those that is short but it packs real punch, and I would highly recommend it. I am also completely obsessed with this edition, although there's another edition that's got like scales on the front that also is beautiful. But yeah, it's very powerful and I'd highly recommend it, as I would all of these, because this is a recommendations video. Okay, last two books. These definitely fit into the weird category, and I'm slightly scared that it's showing you a little bit into the depths of my mind. The first one I'm going to recommend is The Harpy by Megan Hunter, which I read last month. This copy was also gifted to me by Book Break. This is about a husband and wife. The wife finds out that the husband's been having an affair, and in exchange he agrees that she can hurt him 3 times in any way she likes. He has to just take it, and they start on a very dark path together, and she begins to change as this goes on. This was really, really gripping. It's really, really weird. I really need other people to read it so I can talk about the end. And I just thought it was fantastic, and Megan Hunter is definitely an author I'm going to look out for, because if someone can write something this short with this much punch, I am definitely down for more books by them. Yeah, this is odd. I think you can probably tell from the cover that it's weird. It's one of those like very unsettling, very dark reads, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then the last book. Okay, so this is a book I have talked about a lot already this year. I've actually seen it popping up on a couple of people's October TBRs, which makes me very excited but very nervous, because it's easily one of the weirdest books I've ever read, but it's also one of the most beautiful. I'm fairly sure, well, it's definitely going to be in my favourite reads of the year. I don't tend to rank my favourite reads of the year because that's just too hard. But yeah, this would definitely be in my like top 3 books of the year, and that is Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Bazterrica. And this is about cannibalism. I told you it was weird. This is translated fiction. It's originally written by it is written by an Argentinian author, so it's translated into English. And look at this cover. Does that not give you the creeps? So this book is set in a world where animal flesh can no longer be consumed because there has been a virus, which I read this in May, so that was a weird choice to read this in May. But anyway, there's been a virus and it's made all animal flesh poisonous, and so the consumption of human flesh has been legalised. And I think we're about 10 years after that's happened, which is my favourite kind of dystopian, when everything is already like settled down and happening. I think it's like 10-15 years since the virus, and we follow a man that works in an abattoir processing human meat, and it's exactly as weird as it sounds, but it's also absolutely stunningly written, and it makes you think about so many things, not just the whole meat eating thing, but it's how it affects everything else. And it's things like nobody has any pets anymore because all animals are completely banned because they could bite you and kill you. And he goes to the zoo and the zoo is empty, and it's just really haunting him walking around. But also a friend of his, or a business connection, is a massive hunter, but there are no animals left, so they hunt humans. And yeah, it's a lot. This is not going to be for everybody, and there are lots of content warnings, so please check those. They're in my May wrap up. But this is still one of those books I cannot stop thinking about it. I read it in May. I do really want to reread it, but I'm not sure I'm going to fit it in before the end of the year. How long are you? It's about 220 pages, and also the ending. Oh my gosh, the ending. Yeah. So yeah, this very weird book. If you can handle the topic, I would highly recommend. So those are all the books. Let's hold them up like a real booktuber would. these are all the books I'm recommending that are short reads, plus The Test and the Wayward Children series. Yeah, these are the books that I'm recommending that are short reads, but really, really, really great reads. So drop me a comment below and let me know what your favourite book or read is that's less than 250 pages. Let me know if you've read any of these so we can talk about them, especially the weird ones. I feel like I need people to talk about with the weird books. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks guys. Bye.